PhD. Let me set that precedence. But I am the country manager for this organization, which is called E4 Impact, which I will share more about you. But I would rather like to say of myself that I am really a problem solver. I'm a person who works or enjoys working with other persons, and I'm actually an entrepreneur myself. So let me just start by, I just want to share a brief little story, something in history about innovation and collaboration, because that's what we've been talking about in these few days. And I'm reminded in the 1930s, 35 to 45 or so, a critical time for the US government. I'm from the West, so maybe some of my references may be associated with that. No, sorry, I'm African, but I'm also from the West, half-half. But it was a critical time, and the government of the US needed a solution because they were facing World War II. They needed something to overcome their adversaries. And so what did they do? They turned to the universities. They said, of course, we have this pending challenge, we need solutions, we need ideas. And they actually funded the universities to do the research. And this research led to a lot of groundbreaking technologies and ideas like radar, which was developed by MIT, and also nuclear advancements through the Manhattan Project. These kinds of ideas and this model was then translated into what they have, their National Science Foundation, their NSF, and also their Department for Advanced Research, etc. So this gives us an idea of how fostering an innovation-driven economy can be done when there is a clear objective or a clear goal that has been set out by somebody. In this case, it was the government. So allow me to share a bit now about E4 Impact Foundation, who we are and what we do. It's an interesting model. It has a trifold mission. You can see highlighted there, really in supporting African entrepreneurs, supporting African universities, and also African and international companies by bridging this kind of linkage support. E4 Impact has its roots, as you can see there, but I will just say briefly about it, that it was founded in 2015, and it's led by, the director is a professor. He is Professor Mario Molteni from the University Cattolica in Milan, Italy. It incorporates the Altus Business School. This thing is moving faster than I wanted it to. Okay, it incorporates the Altus Business School as a part of the University Cattolica in Milan, Italy. The Professor Mario Molteni came up with this idea. He wants to be able to support African entrepreneurs to do what they do best, develop innovations, produce food, whatever that is. But he also thought, based on what he was seeing in Milan, in Italy, in the business sector, that there was a lot of opportunity for Italian companies to be able to do business with African entrepreneurs. So, sorry, I like to move around. So he saw this amazing opportunity for African entrepreneurs and for leading Italian companies. So the first cohort they actually had, they brought a cohort of African entrepreneurs from different countries to Italy to do this business program. It failed because you're taking the African. Thank you, now I can move. Great. You're taking the African out of his natural environment and you want him to be successful in business. Did not work. So what they did instead is they developed this model. They said, let's go to the African countries. Let's develop a partnership with the universities there. Let us develop a program that is so hands-on that it is for a select group of people, probably executives. Sometimes we describe it as the executive MBA or the global MBA. Let's bring our expertise from Milan, Italy, and let's use the contextualized expertise of the universities in the countries in which we are going to work. Here, we are partnered with the University of Rwanda. Any persons from the University of Rwanda here? I think we had so many. Okay, so there are a lot of brilliant, amazing, awesome persons that I work with at the University of Rwanda. And the University of Rwanda is so large, there's still many people that I have yet to meet. But here's what the model looks like. So it's a co-teaching in which we have We have professors from University Cattolica that will come to Rwanda. In the case of Rwanda, I'll show you where we are located in the other areas of the continent. So some of the segments, the program is 1.5 years long. Some of the segments are taught by the Italian professors, and then we have experts also in Kenya where we have a major hub. And then the other components are taught by the local professors here. So it's a very practical, hands-on course. When persons come into the program or they're looking to start the program, the first thing we want to know is, what do you do? Do you have a business that you're ready to start, or do you have, or are you already in business? You have an innovation, you have a business idea, you're doing something now. Otherwise, if you're just looking for a piece of paper to put behind you at your desk or your office, or to say to persons, I have an MBA in business, please, I say to them, continue down the corridor to the post-grad office and see if you can enroll in another program. This one is very hands-on. So it's a master's program, but imagine it being like an incubation master's program. So the cohorts are set with a number of, maybe we have about 30 students. They're coming from different business areas, different value chains, etc. But they're going through the same model of training. I can just condense there to say that it has, we will do most of the business components. We use the business model, canvas design, design thinking, lean model for startups, because we want to accelerate. We don't believe in this thing of doing 10 years to say you're starting a business, but we want you to do a rapid prototyping and go out and test that prototype. This is a key area in which we see a lot of failure with businesses, organizations, etc. You think you have an idea, you think you have a solution. You've seen my mother or my sister or somebody loves this idea or this product. So the beginning of the program is heavily focused on that. Go out and test your hypothesis. So once they come back in with those tests throughout the program, we continue to challenge them about the solution that they have or they have not. Let's be clear, unlike academia, when it comes to entrepreneurship and business, the bottom line is, do you have something that somebody wants to buy? If nobody's chasing you down for that, nobody's giving you money for it, please. Either we're going to pivot to see how we can adjust that, learning from what the market has said to us, and how quickly can we do that. Okay. So what I can say, our presence in Africa, we're spread out into about 20 countries. In some of these countries, most of them where we have an office, we likely have the MBA program going as well, but we also do other economic development projects and whatnot. Keynote is that we focus on entrepreneurship. That is our specialty. When it comes to other things, we can partner with other companies, organizations or so to do training programs for them, consultancy or whatnot, in different value chains. We have worked in so many value chains. We do work in so many value chains. There are others as well. But our key focus is the entrepreneurship aspect. And so doing this also gives us more leverage to understanding what's happening in the market, how things actually work, pivot even our own business model and design. Okay, so just some achievements. I mean, we all have them for the E4 impact. But what is critical that I really want to focus on there is the fact that we focus on job creation. So we really like to work with businesses and entrepreneurs that have the capacity to develop something that is then going to spur off job creation. So now I'm just going to share a few thoughts about, remember I said very quickly, a few thoughts about what we have learned, what we have encountered. When it comes to the MBA program and working with, in the area of working with academia, on both sides, University Cattolica and also with the local universities, the entrepreneurial mindset is very different from the academic mindset. Academia, and I also have a background in academics myself, academia is very stoic. You know, they're very rigid, very structured, things have to be done this way, this way, this way. When it comes to the entrepreneurial mindset, people want to do things. They're excited. They move by passion. You know, they can resolve issues in a short period of time. And then academia steps in, policy steps in. I mean, we need all these things. And they say, wait, you're moving too fast, slow down. And, you know, it's like that. So we're always trying to maintain our balance. Another challenge is the area of research. one of the key things about the program that we do is that we encourage research. The innovator needs to go out and test your hypothesis. We are actually very tired of seeing, I see work with so many entrepreneurs, so many innovations, and we are just reinventing the wheel. Why are we reinventing the wheel? We are Africa, so we feel like we have to start from the bottom? No. So there's so many innovations that we see. For example, I had a student, university student in one of the programs, who was producing an egg incubator. This is a great idea, of course, for farms and for persons who want to raise chickens, but that's been done 100,000 times over. You can go on Alibaba if you want and buy an egg, that thing. But what you could do is maybe look at what is already existing, look at your region and see how you could tweak that and make it cost effective for where you're living or the market that you're trying to reach. So these are the kinds of thinking that we are trying to develop. So there still lags a lot with research. We also know, because we work with a lot of farmers, that the university is producing a lot of good research, but the entrepreneurs are going out and repeating the cycle of doing research. So somewhere between getting the innovators, the entrepreneurs together with what the university has done or is doing and creating teams there. Understand the research that's already been done. How can you use that? Do you need to now adjust or pivot or do extra things on that? That's actually manpower, resources that we're not tapping into quite as well as yet. So transforming mindset becomes a critical thing when we look at where we are as an organization and where we want to go. Remember, for us, it's very practical. So we work with academia on either side, but we're very practical. We're looking at innovations all the time. We're looking at solutions. We're looking at what's happening in the world. And we feel like there needs to be a change of mindset on everybody's side. Who are we producing solutions for? Are we addressing real market and societal needs, or are we recycling time-consuming, repetitive solutions? Successful ecosystems like Silicon Valley. Silicon Valley actually came out after the one that we know in the US. After all of that issues with the World War II and developing all of these innovations, and it spurred off into what they have as the Silicon Valley. I think Israel has their Silicon Valley. I know we're working on, is it KIC? In the Free Economic Zone here as well. So lean startup movement, design thinking, the 5 whys. We've seen digital app solutions that are replicating. There are 100,000 apps out there. There was one point maybe 2 years ago where it seemed like every young person felt like they had to produce an app, but not really doing the research, working with, again, with university researchers. And it doesn't stop there. Doing research with the universities or understanding what's there at the university is one component. But then we also have to look at international research, what's happening on the global market, especially for digital services, AI solutions, and these kinds of things. We're not working in isolation. Website making, designing, and all of these things. We also need to be, challenges we've seen is that in Africa, we need to see that these things now are on a world stage platform. You can go to websites like Fiverr and Upworks, and you can pay somebody from Bangladesh or wherever to do a website for you for less than $100, and they're going to do a good job because the market is competitive. But here, we have persons that you're going to pay an arm and a leg, right? So we need to be mindful of these things. How can we innovate quickly and effectively? In Africa, we are actually a leading force, but we are taking our time doing things. We need to see what's happening on the world stage, especially with digital and AI, and see how we can innovate faster. These are some of the challenges and the things that we think about. We're almost done, sir. Okay, so just looking at the themes that we have here, these are things that we've been talking about, hearing about in the last 3 days. We know partnerships, policies, even establishing the innovation hubs. But the question is, how do we do this? How do we align these things? This last slide, when we talk about how these 3, the triple helix, the universities, the government, the private sector, how they intertwine. I mean, you can go online, you can find so many of these I was looking at so many. And they're all the triple helix, intertwining like this. But you know what? Most things work as an apex, right? Like a triangle. There's somewhere at the top that we start from. Who starts it? Is it the government that we're waiting for to tell us, okay, these are our interests specifically? You know, we want to, in the next 10 years, like the US and Russia did in the 1960s, they had the space race. And from that came so many amazing offshoot technologies. But they had a specific goal in the science-oriented field. What is it? Who starts it? I mean, this is just, you know, but who starts it? Is it the government that tells us in 10 years from now we want to have a hydroponic system that is feeding 1 million people a day? And then we're all competing to try to do that. And from that, we end up with a number of wonderful spin-offs that spurs in the direction that we want to go. Who leads it? I guess that's the conversations that we are having. I would probably say the entrepreneurs lead it because they are more free. You can do whatever you want according to your own time. You can be midnight tonight, you can be working on your innovation and nobody's going to stop you. But these are some interesting thoughts. So I hope that I've condensed the time, given you a brief overview of who we are, entrepreneurship. The E is for entrepreneurship, for impact, E for impact. We are located at the University of Rwanda, and it has been an absolute pleasure to be able to share with you this afternoon. Thank you so much.
Can you give a round of applause, please? Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Can I call upon the second plenary speaker, who's going to talk about the role of universities in support of sustainable development goals through the UN academic impact. The case of Mount Kenya University as the hub chair of the SDG 9 on industry, innovation, and infrastructure. Professor Peter Wanderi.
Thank you very much, Chair. Chair, ladies and gentlemen, I have a disclaimer to make before I start. That maybe listening to me, you might think I work with the UN or I'm paid to come and talk about what they do to the world. But that is not the case. I and the university I work for and the colleagues I am with here, we are happy to have consumed their services and their guidelines. And that's what I'm here to share. Secondly, Chair, despite the time you have squeezed for me, allow me to recognize my chair of the council who is here, Dr. Vincent Gaido, and my Vice Chancellor, who is here, Professor Deogratius Jagani. And we have a team of marketers downstairs, marketing Mount Kenya University and Mount Kigali University. The role of universities in promotion of sustainable development goals through UN academic impact. The role of MKU. The chair had indicated that if I could spend 5 minutes, the better. I may not promise him now that I'm here that 5 minutes are possible, but I'll try to keep to the promise. As I make this presentation, I want to observe 3 realities. That we have all heard of sustainable development goals. And I will be shy enough not to ask people to raise hands, because I know everybody has heard of that. But the second question is about United Nations academic impact. I am aware that a few of you are even members to that platform. But as to whether you follow to the letter the guidelines and the requests they send to us as members, that is another business. I am here to request 2 things. If you are not members, kindly consider being members. And I say this not because I work for the UN, but as all of us are, we benefit from the UN activities. And my university has, in a particular way, been part of that. Also to request you, if you are members of UN academic impact, kindly try to follow their requests and their invitations. Background, SDGs and their promotion by universities This is the main talk where UNAI is the enabler, especially given the low levels of achievement of SDGs across the globe. SDGs were initiated in 2015, but up to today, statistics show that we are not doing very well. And the universities, through UNAI, are being requested to be the change agents. Just reading this, I'll skip a lot of slides, but I believe because the Secretariat has them, they will share. I have written comprehensively so that you will be able to get even to the links and the links that are offered. United Nations Academic Impact is an initiative that, one, brings institutions of higher together from around the world that share goals in research, teaching, and community engagement. And they also introduce them to the mandates of the UN goals. And this was launched in 2010 by the then Secretary General, Ban Ki-moon. And it is spread to over 1,600 universities across the world in over 150 countries. And as I mentioned, the work of the UN is to help the universities appreciate that there can be change agents in the promotion of SDGs. And in doing that, maybe I'm sure you know the background of SDGs. We had MDGs, that were 8 of them up to 2015. They didn't perform very well, and they changed, the UN changed in 2015 to SDGs. I wanted to refer to the second bullet, that SDGs are closely related to our national vision statement. You know, we have Rwanda Vision 2050. A few countries have kept on changing. When the time comes and they have not achieved, they would move. We also have Uganda Vision 2040 and all this. We also have East African Community Vision 2050 and Africa Agenda 2063. SDGs are in line with those. But now the question is, do you align your activities as universities or as higher education institutes to the vision statements of your country? The answer is yes. The presenter who was here talked of making what we are doing to be relevant, aligned to our national needs, regional needs, and obviously international needs. That's all SDGs are about. And that is what I am here, not paid by the UN, but as a member of Mount Kenya University fraternity, sharing with you our story, our journey, and hoping that you'll appreciate what we have seen. I will skip this, but it's the background of is what UNAI does. There is a form that is made, that provided online, that you fill. Once you fill, you submit in 2 weeks. It's free of charge forum. You submit, and they will be able to give you a number. And then every year, they give you a template to say what you have achieved. In giving that template, you'll be doing more or less what Times Higher Education Today of UK is doing. It is ranking universities on SDGs performance. This is what UNAI has been doing. So universities have to promote and showcase their activities annually in terms of SDGs performance. There are many benefits. I will not go through this, but kindly, I am sure the Secretariat will circulate. I only want to mention one benefit, that it's good to be known and to be visible. One of them, and this is the last one that I put there because I would want to talk about it, is the activities of your research will be showcased by UNAI in their website, in their newsletters, and they have a wide subscription. This is one of our MKU's research activities, where the School of Education is working with the Kenya prisons, and we supported this. We provided this information to UNAI, and they asked for more details because you give in brief, and when you give to the big details, you can see it's actually one photograph, but it was lengthy, so I slid into two. It comes on the UNAI platform website. So this is one of the visibility and opportunity that you get. You have a conference, they will announce it for you, and many others. We might be members, but we are not utilizing that opportunity. I want to read this communication by Kimun, and after that I'll skip all the rest so that chair will not be very annoyed. By sharing ideas across borders and disciplines, we can find solutions to the interconnected problems that cause so much suffering. Climate change is not just an environmental threat. It is closely tied to poverty. Poverty is not just about jobs. It is directly related to food security. Food security has an impact on health. Health affects generations of children. Children hold the key to our future, and education can lead to progress on all these fronts. This was said on 18th of November 2010 when Secretary General was launching the UNAI. And whatever you do, I'm sure it's contained in that statement. And therefore, if I was to be told by chair to stop, I think I've communicated. However, let me showcase what we have done in MKU in 1 minute, chair, 1 minute. We joined in 2017, and in 2021, having given our report, we were approached to be a hub for SDG number 10 on reducing inequalities. 2024, the hub position became very competitive amongst members, and we were told to reapply to be hub chair. A hub chair is a hub that has very many universities. We applied, and this year, Vice Chancellor was invited in an online meeting to receive the award of being the chair of SDG number 9 on industry, innovation, and infrastructure. And the photographs there is what appeared before the end of last year when we were UNAI SDG Hub 10 on reducing inequalities. This is what is happening today. It is still there, but now we are SDG 9 Hub Chair, 2025 to 2029. And what is it that we've done? If you check our mission as a university, it is talking about SDGs, promotion of research and innovation, mission, world-class university in research innovation for greater transformation and sustainable development goals. How many times have the word innovation been mentioned here? And it will continue to be mentioned. The two of them are well captured in our vision and mission. And I will also avoid that because I know you receive that, but I'm saying this because I had made a promise to Chair. Chair, this is one of the activities where JICA has established a Malaria Elimination Institute of Tropical Medicine at MKU. The Vice Chancellor and the Chair of the Council are the two gentlemen there at the forefront when we were opening it. We have Innovation and Incubation Center that was sponsored by European Commission in EU, European Commission in 2022 through Erasmus Plus program. The same one has led a lot of our students to move across the globe in competing with their innovations with a lot of good successes. We also hold annual Research Innovation Week, and this is one of them that we are showcasing. And talk of infrastructure. It is not easy to establish what would be a maritime academy. MKU has a maritime academy. Noting the issue of unemployment, we thought of following the words of Mabogne and Chan Kim, those people who have read the book on Blue Ocean Strategy. We stopped helping our youth to create jobs here because marine economy and the environment has more jobs. That is where we are in the country. The infrastructure, the innovation, and creativity, and everything that goes with allows us to celebrate the recognition by UN when we got this opportunity. But we have others that last year we were contacted to contribute to a book chapter by NAFSA on how we align our activities on SDGs. And it is captured, and the book is available when I also circulate the book details. And this is the prison model that also MKU has presented tablets preloaded with education materials to inmates. And this was the Vice Chancellor presenting to the prison's boss. We also offer scholarships. Some of the cases, Kenyans who are here, they know of one student, one person who wanted to study medicine and could not because did not afford it, even in the public sector school, universities. And he's offered to sell his kidney. The university sent out to him, said, keep your kidneys, full scholarship for medicine. Now he is a practicing doctor. That's one amongst many others. We also have an innovation and entrepreneurship hub, where, for instance, it is sponsored for 2020 to 2029 by DAAD and working with the universities that you are seeing there. We also have integrated technologies in ICT, and we are doing a lot of other activities within the ICT sector, as well as we have a radio. Just even here in MKU Rwanda, we have a radio and a TV also in Kenya, and all of these are used in what we do in our teaching. Finally, also academia, industry activities, and so on. But let me finish saying that when you read this document, especially towards the end, you'll see the commitment by UN in helping you achieve all that you have mentioned in a better way, value addition. So, as I finish, I'm telling you, kindly, the last statement here is that come over, join me, join us in the hub chair so that we can talk to each other and make the world a better place for everybody. Thank you, my submission.
Thank you, Professor Wanderi. Thank you so much for that. I think we got two models of how, two case studies of how, in the process of developing a pipeline of innovative leaders, on one side, we saw a model that is completely experiential. It's not for theory, it's completely experiential. And on this side, we see how the SDGs can be the anchor of your development of innovative and maybe even entrepreneurial leaders. Can I now move to the third section and call the panel to come forward? I would like to invite the panelists, Mr. Amos Fitundida. Thank you. Sylvia Mukasa. Dr. Philip Pande. Dr. Victor K. Muposhi. And Dr. Prof. Dangobo. Please take your seat. Can we move this? Okay. I think we'll have to do the heavy lifting. Thank you, panelists. I would like to ask you to introduce yourselves very briefly before we go to the questions. The way we're going to do this is we're going to go through each of the questions and have responses from you, but please start by introducing yourselves. Start on the far end.
Thank you, Professor. I'm called Amos Fitundida, and I work with the government of Rwanda, the Ministry of Public Service and Labor. I head the Department of Strategic Capacity Development. I came in to stand in for my colleague Francois Ngoboka, who is the Chief Skills Officer. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sylvia Mukasa, and I am founder, CEO of Global X Investments Limited and Global X Innovation Labs. and we exist to make innovations happen. And one of the things that drove us to start this company was because we saw some of these gaps that we are talking about, gaps between industry, academia, and generally what goes on in the market, especially when addressing innovations, digital transformation, and entrepreneurship and technology as a whole. So I'm glad to be here, and I'll be sharing in a minute. Thank you.
Good afternoon to all of you. My name is Philip Pande, the Executive Director and co-founder Corporate Career Academy, which is the largest partner in linking academia and industry in support of transitioning from campus to career, or basically training to industry. We are based in Nairobi, but work across East Africa with a lot of partnership with the continental body, including the African Union, in which we are champions of the 1 million next level, which seeks to provide opportunities for the youth in 5 thematic areas, which we are calling the 4 E's plus H. So education, employment, entrepreneurship, engagement, and health and well-being. I also serve in a different role as the Special Envoy for All Africa Association for SMEs, particularly fostering the implementation of the youth and women and partly digital protocols, supporting youth and women on the continent to grab the opportunities. It's a pleasure, and I must thank the ICR for this particular opportunity to share our experiences with such a good mix of audience. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Parfait Yongabo. I work with Rwanda Polytechnic as the division manager for institutional development, applied research and consultancy. Rwanda Polytechnic is the only public polytechnic in Rwanda. So we have 8 colleges around the country. And I invite you to visit our exhibition booth to know more about what we are doing in terms of innovation. Thank you.
My name is Victor Mposhi. I am the head of academics with the School of Wildlife Conservation with African Leadership University. I think you know our mission and motto is that we are there to raise innovative, ethical, entrepreneurial leaders in Africa and beyond. I think most of the things we will talk as the discussion proceeds. Thank you.
Thank you, panelists. Let's start with the first question. Can I please ask that we summarize our notes instead of giving presentations? The first question is how to harness the role of incubation centers, innovation hubs, and accelerators in universities. We'll start with you. We'll start from this side and go that way this time.
Thank you, Prof. I will start by highlighting my own perspectives based on the interactions and what I've had, seen, and know. And then I'll also go back to what Africa Leadership University does. So generally, I think it is important to appreciate and understand that if we are to harness incubators, innovation hubs, we need to start by thinking about the concept of knowledge generation as institutions, as universities. Because universities should generate knowledge, but we believe that knowledge is not enough on its own. Therefore comes the idea of innovation and commercialization of those innovations. How can we do it without losing focus of the role and mandate of academic institutions of creating knowledge and ensuring that we contribute to the sustainable development goals and economic growth of the countries in which we are found? So in terms of innovation, innovation cannot come without knowledge. And I think that is the bottom line. I've heard people talk about it, but knowledge starts first, and then innovation follows, commercialization follows. Comes the idea of innovation hubs. And in this case, how do we harness that? There is no need for us to reinvent the wheel, because there are others who have done it. Stanford have done it. It's part of the Silicon Valley. They have their own form of innovation hub, which has grown and become the hub, if not of innovation, tech giants, startups that are incubated there, that are financed and funded by institutions that you find within the Silicon Valley. And in this case, how do we harness and tap into that experience and knowledge that is already there and is documented without reinventing the wheel as African institutions? And I think the challenge that we are having and that I have seen is that we want to be called the pioneers in something. We can't be pioneers in everything, but we can perfect and adapt the situations and the things that we want based on the environment and based on the needs and the challenges that we have as countries, as Africa. So we have that challenge as Africa that we need to work together in order for us to have these incubation centers within our universities. How do we do it and how do we fund it? The model is there. We have seen DIT talking about how they have implemented their model and how they are doing it. But there are many other models that are out there that we can actually tap into and look into and customize to fit our own needs and desires. I think I'll end there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think the previous speaker has really emphasized on the need for the incubation centers. But coming back to the question from the moderator, how do we harness the incubation centers within the university? So I think one needs to really to take a pragmatic approach to it, and they delve into the inner workings of the innovation, the incubation centers as the innovation space in the academic setting. Because the way they do operate, I believe that they're a bit different from the non-academic incubators. And then how do we do that? I think that's the critical issue to look at, because when you look at their functions, they're not that a bit different from the other incubation centers, but the environment where they operate is a bit different, and we need for us to see if we got it right in setting up the incubation centers that can offer at least the key services that are needed, providing the students with the right working place for them really to concentrate on their ideas, develop them, but also consider the key role of interaction and co-creation, give them the space for co-creation. And one of the speakers in the morning mentioned something very important, having the facility that will allow the innovators to prototype their products. So I think the academic incubation centers would consider to have very specific maker spaces or design factories where the student will be developing their product. Then probably when they reach the level of standardization of certification, then they go to the other government facilities around, or they collaborate with the industry. So then having that setting is, I would say, that will be the entry point to that. But we also need to have the proper management of the incubation center. We have seen most of the universities rushing to put a position of incubation managers part of their structure without necessarily even having the incubation center in itself. And so then if you have managed to put the function on your structure, you have the facility, then how do you manage it? I think that's a critical point, because we'll get the better result if you have the proper management of that. And the proper management will involve having the people with the right capacity, to do that, but also having sort of support mechanism with a very concise programmatic approach to support the incubators. I liked the idea from the E4 Impact about how they recruit incubators. I think the recruitment of incubators should be intentional and competitive because it's not everybody who needs to go to the incubation center, because we won't have resources to incubate all the students. You need to incubate those who are promising to succeed. But again, although you go with the capacity of the incubation center, but there is another key element of how do you support others who didn't make it to the competition, because that's key, and that takes me to the key aspect that is very important for the incubation center. How do we prepare the future incubatees? Because we need to have, like I would say, the nursery where we get the incubators, nursery where we get the incubators to be incubated. So here I'm trying to talk about the role of the career support for the incubators. You need to have sort of like the innovation clubs where the innovators who don't have like the clear ideas would be interacting for the peer learning, so that they can be able to mature their idea and then be competitive to win that slot for their incubation. And another aspect is the funding. We talked about the funding many times, but we won't stop talking about it, because the student will need the seed funding to be able to do their prototype, to be able to do the research that our colleague from the E4 Impact mentioned. If they are part of the identifying their market, the ideation of their product, defining their product, developing their product, or deploying the product. So that will need a sort of facilitation for them to be able to do that. And that will require a sort of intentionality in supporting the incubation center. And probably my last point on this, I will call for the academic leadership support to this, because we won't have the incubation centers harnessed or being efficient if we look at it as a side activity, part of the other academic activity. It has to be part and parcel of the university business, and that needs the high level of academic leadership support, and not only looking at the level of VC, DVCs, and these others, but looking from the departmental level up to the apex of the university management. So with that leadership support, I think the integration of the incubation center and the efficient probably would take us somewhere. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much once again. And allow me to use these 3 questions to also ask you 3 questions. And the first question I'm going to ask you is, how old is the curriculum that you're implementing today in your institution?
I'm sure we are not looking for an answer to it. It's a rhetorical
no,
question.
no answer. Just a reflection. And the second question would be, how many times do your instructors, lecturers use the concept or the word or the phrase innovation and entrepreneurship in teaching? And the final question is, if you are learning or a training institution, who are your traditional partners? And so as you reflect around these 3 questions, and as I attempt to answer the same 3 questions, we are integrating our experience in running out of school innovation, incubation, accelerator programs, and relating that with the context of training, learning institutions, especially universities. And I would dare say that we, at a critical time when academic credentials, publications, and all the certificates are overly devalued, and that a thriving ecosystem of innovation, incubation, and accelerator programs out of school is overtaking universities and learning institutions in job creation. That is the reality. That is very easy for somebody who comes out of a university to miss out on employment and entrepreneurship opportunities, but it's almost guaranteed that somebody that spends 6 months, 12 months in and out of school youth accelerator program will run and own a business, whether successful or not. So the question that we must answer is, how are our programs and how are our institutions responding to the urgency of creating enterprises and not just commercializing innovations or commercializing research, but basically converting those into enterprises. And so for us to run successful innovation, incubation, and accelerator programs in our institutions, we must have a response to the why. Why are we going to establish them in our institutions? And in that why, we must be able to program those innovation hubs and programs. We must be able to design them, just like we design academic curriculum. And while we have faculties or departments, in golf we talk about the 19th hole. Innovation hubs, accelerator centers, business incubation programs in our institutions must be that 19th hole or that final faculty or department or directorate that then works with everybody. And do not think or overthink these as academicians or heads of institutions. An example was given here by Engineer Anke, and I really loved her presentation. We must not move to the level of the DVC to innovate, because some of your institutions are not huge enough to accommodate 3 DVCs or 4 DVCs or even 2 DVCs. You have 1 DVC. So it could be a directorate, but treat it as a faculty or a department that then talks to everybody. And do not run the risk of having multiple innovation or incubation centers, like we have, a chemistry, a physics, a biology, a home science laboratory, and so forth. No, it must be a one-stop shop, like was mentioned, with all these programs together. And the ultimate goal is, how many businesses are we going to register out of that innovation, incubation, and accelerator program? How many patents are we going to have out of that? How many partnerships are we going to create out of that? How many minimum viable products are we going to emerge out of that particular hub? And finally, how much revenue are we targeting in this particular hub? In Kenya last year, the country raised, as a final point, over $600 million US in startup funding. That was a decline from 2023, which was about $1 billion US. So the startup ecosystem in Africa today is raising about $2.2 billion. The big question that learning institutions, especially universities, must be able to answer is, what fraction of the $2.2 billion are we attracting as incubators, as accelerators, and innovation centers on campus or maker spaces in TVET spaces? And that's the question that we try to answer. That's what we are trying to support as Corporate Career Academy. Thank you very much.
Okay. Much has already been said, so I will try not to repeat what has been said. But one of the things, because I've spent quite a bit of time in different innovation ecosystems, the Silicon Valley being one of them, and also with the European digital innovation hubs. And one thing that stands out in all these ecosystems is the ability of private sector and the universities working together, especially when it comes to commercialization. We can't emphasize a lot on this, that it doesn't help to have all this research going on, but then there are no proper solutions or innovations that are coming out of them, something tangible that we can see. So it's important to tap into this wider ecosystems in the innovation in the innovation circles. We talk about being global, and by global we mean having local solutions that are also global in nature. So it's important that as we think of innovations locally, how are we ensuring that those innovations can also compete on a global scale, and even the skills that our innovators or entrepreneurs are having, can they compete globally? So I think it's important that we look at the wider innovation ecosystem, even as we come up with these accelerators or incubators and innovation hubs within our institutions. Make sure you're leveraging other partnerships outside of your local ecosystem. The other thing is a big role that these centers can also give is provide a platform where innovations can be tested. In the European ecosystem, they talk about test before invest, which is basically testing solutions before huge investments are put into them. And the Silicon Valley talks about failing fast and learning fast, so that you discover if your innovation is not going to work, then you stop putting money into it. So this accelerators and incubators should actually be providing spaces where innovators can test their solutions. And where the institutions don't have them, partner with other organizations or institutions that could be having this kind of testing platforms that can be used for innovations. The other thing I would talk about is, as we look at regions, the East Africa region or Africa as a continent, how are we ensuring that the systems in place will allow these innovations to be scaled across borders? So having support systems, and this now calls upon governments as well, and also these innovation hubs supporting innovators as they come up with solutions, support them so that they can have solutions that can be rolled out or scaled up across borders. The other thing I would talk about is having co-funding models. We've heard a lot about how private sector is not working well with the universities, but at the end of the day, it's each party will have to ask themselves what's in it for them, right? So if there's nothing for private sector, then they will not put in funding. And the other way around, if academia are not seeing value in terms of collaborations with private sector, then those kind of collaborations cannot happen. So it's important that we come up with co-funding models that are beneficial to both sides, so that funding does not become a big issue or is not heavily skewed towards one side and not the other. The other thing, which will be my last point on this, is about what we call the digital maturity assessment. And this I'm talking as someone who's very passionate about digital transformation. So we want to adopt digitalization in our solutions, but when you start looking at the capacities of this innovation hubs or accelerators and incubators, most of them don't even understand where they are at in terms of digital maturity. And when I talk about digital maturity, I am referring to digital culture and digital intensity of our organizations, because if we are to innovate, then we need to have the right levels of digital maturity, and someone has to be playing the role of doing these assessments. For instance, last year I did the very first digital maturity assessment of Kenyan enterprises when we were setting up an EU-funded green and digital innovation hub. So it's important that even universities understand where they are at in terms of digital maturity, so that then that helps them in terms of seeing how they can develop or digitalize and also support entrepreneurs on that. I'd forgotten this, last one. Those that don't have physical labs where solutions can be tested, then you could have virtual classrooms, or you can also have digital platforms or virtual platforms. And for those who don't have them, there are so many institutions that are not necessarily African that have virtual labs that you could be collaborating with. And I will hand over to you. Thank you.
Thank you. I think much has been said by the other panelists, but let me highlight one area, and this is building strong entrepreneur and innovation ecosystems. The previous speakers highlighted one somehow on that, but I want to emphasize on the issue of how the different disciplines and the different faculties in the university collaborate in making that sure that the innovations and the entrepreneurial skills or ecosystem is well coordinated. What am I saying? You have different faculties of business. You have ICT. You have maybe agriculture. But how do you collaborate so that the professors from the business school have course units that are given out in the ICT faculty, or the other way around? You may find that it is solely meant that this is the professor of ICT and he has to teach those courses in ICT, and that is that. But you need the ideas, those innovative ideas, the skills, the competencies that the person from the faculty from the different faculty like business has, that he has to transmit to the other faculties. So the emphasis here is, why don't you have joint projects in innovation that are cross-cutting the different faculties in the university? There will be that harnessing, because it is an ecosystem that is encompassing the whole university. The other area that I would want to emphasize is the mentorship and advisory programs. Yes, they may be there, but how strong are they? When were you, the last time that we invited the entrepreneur alumni, who probably are very prominent, to come and give a talk, or are mentoring the young incubators? When did you attach maybe a prominent venture capitalist from the ecosystem in your country to come and mentor the people in the innovation ecosystem at your university? If this would be done, then the mentorship and the advisory program of entrepreneurship and innovation can be enhanced. I remember in my former university, I went to Makerere University, and quite often in my school they used to invite, I don't know whether he's still living, but Mr. Wavamuno. He may be, I'm not sure. Eh? Okay. Yeah, they used to invite him to come and give talk in my school. And all that he would say would be real practical. And I'm just imagining if you would bring such a kind of person to be a mentor to the young innovators, they will be seeing things live. And this comes to the question of the student who asked this in the morning, the professors that probably are not that practical. But the venture capitalists, the entrepreneur alumni who are having this hands-on in their area are able to do this because they have studied, but they have also practiced it or are practicing it. And they would be the ideal people to be the mentors or the advisors to these young people who are coming up as innovators. I submit.
Thank you. Panelists, can we take the next two questions together? I would like to reframe them a little bit. Okay. It says here, what is the best approach to integrate entrepreneurship education in traditional academic programs in the university? Let's remove traditional, right, and just say standard academic programs, right? The discipline-based programs and all of those, right? Because I don't know what traditional means here, you know. Right? And then the second one is the most effective strategies for identifying and nurturing young talent with entrepreneurial potential. I would like you to address this question of how do you know when someone is entrepreneurial potential? Okay. So take both of these questions together. How do we deal with the standard academic programs in universities and infuse entrepreneurship in them? And then the other one is nurturing the talent that has potential for entrepreneurial potential, and answer the question, how do you know they have it? Or maybe you don't need to. We'll start with you on the other side this time.
Thank you again. In the morning, something was mentioned of the triple helix model. And the speaker rightly defined it. But I want to come to it by saying, how often do we engage all the three stakeholders in the triangle and relate it to the curriculum? From the design, the development, the review, and then the practical bit of training and also assessment. And now, more often, by the way, I was in academia, so I'm saying it may have changed, but by that time, you would sit in a classroom or have a retreat, design a curriculum. And all of you in the audience are academicians. There is no one from the private sector, and in this case, private sector, I'm talking of those who are going to consume your products. Because after 4 years or 3 years, the students are going out to be employed by the employers are the private sector and the like. So you look at the people who are designing the curriculum and later on who will review it and develop it, none is from the consumer side. That's a very big problem. So the point I want to drive at is to change from the traditional bit of it is to bring in the consumers. The demand side should be present at all the value chains of training, from the design of the curriculum, development, review, training, assessment, and like I think one person in the morning said, even on the management of the education institution. There, I think it will work very well. One other area that I wanted to point out, and with the experience that we are attempting to create here in Rwanda, is the role of sector skills councils. Sector skills councils being the private sector-led skills bodies to come in that ecosystem. Then they will be telling the people who are in academic what they are supposed to produce and in what caliber, and even qualify what is being produced. Thank you.
Okay, so how can we integrate entrepreneurship education in standard academic programs at universities? So I guess we have to introduce practical entrepreneurship courses. That is one. And for those institutions that do not have incubators or accelerators or some shape or form of those kind of entities, I guess you would then need to partner with existing incubators and accelerators that are outside of your universities. That is one way, so that then you're not taking up the burden of setting up your own. You could leverage on those that exist around you. The other is, and I think Professor Anke talked about this earlier, but I'll just frame it a little bit different. Allow students academic credits for working on startups and innovative projects. That is one. So you have to work around giving them some form of credit, academic credits, for working on this kind of projects. The other is, of course, multidisciplinary innovation programs where you're bringing together students from across different schools. That's already happening, especially at postgraduate level, but I think it's important that you begin to do this right from undergraduate, so that they begin to be able to think differently and also come up with innovative ideas. The other is introducing Entrepreneurship 101. I don't know if there's anything like that or how you name your units, but I'm just thinking at the top of my head, having something very introductory level that is compulsory, irrespective of whatever school or course the students are taking. Almost something similar to statistics. I see statistics across all faculties or schools. So I think that would help because then it begins to educate those who may not have an understanding of what entrepreneurship is about, to then begin thinking about that in the early stages of their education and maybe shape their decisions as they carry on with their studies. In terms of identifying who could be an entrepreneur, I think it's almost a natural thing that we are drawn to things that we like, right? So if someone likes singing, for instance, they will automatically think of taking a music-related course. So I think the kind of courses that students will select sort of speak to what their interests are. Not all the time, but that could be an indicator of what they would be interested in. It's unfortunate that sometimes you end up doing courses that you may not really want. You just end up in a certain class because a selecting body decided that is where you fit in. But if people are selecting or students are selecting the courses they like, I think they would be drawn to entrepreneurship courses or something innovation related if that is what they're passionate about. I think that is one way. The other is to begin this process at a very early age, and this is what we do at Global X. We work even with parents and with schools, and in terms of after-school clubs and also holiday classes where we introduce these different concepts, so that then children grow up knowing that that is a potential pathway for them. Because I'm a strong believer in start early so that you identify talent early. And I know university is much later, but at the end of the day, if we begin to shape this from a very early age, then I think by the time they're getting to higher education, they definitely understand what pathways they want to follow. And I think I will leave it at that. With time, maybe we can speak about how we can nurture, but I will leave it.
Okay, to add my voice on what my colleagues have said, the first approach is that we must be intentional about curriculum review and the frequency of those review, whether peer review or a full review of our curriculum. the history of education in this ecosystem, and I'm talking about the East African community, is that we've developed most of our programs, if not with recent private sector education, in the public ecosystem. We have programs dating back to the 1980s and early 90s. Regardless of how your institution came to be, it was a constituent of another parent university, and you inherited the curriculum from that university. And that is that there is a likelihood that there is a university today that is teaching with a before 2000 curriculum. So let's be intentional about curriculum review, and let's talk about those common courses that we are teaching. I'll take a good example of African Leadership University as a case study. Look at the courses they teach in the first year: critical thinking, entrepreneurship, innovation. I'm not saying this because the VC is here, but that is the reality. I was taught Comms 101, and I had colleagues who did Comp 101. I mean, a first-year student taking computer packages. So we have to really rethink on what do we want to prioritize. Like my colleague says, Sylvia, I think she read my notes, Entrepreneurship 101 or Entrepreneurship 100. We are teaching accounting 1 or accounting 100 or 101. But what is it in that accounting? Yeah? Complex calculations instead of Excel organization of businesses or concepts or business plans. By the way, this innovation and accelerator labs or hubs that we're talking about, one of the basic things that we teach in those spaces is business model canvas, which basically tells you how to organize your issues, including how to calculate profits and so forth. So are we teaching that as a priority? I may not delve into the details of the approaches, but we've answered that. The other thing that perhaps you might want to consider is, before we get feedback from the private sector, can we get feedback from the students who are the first stakeholders? For example, one of the ways that we've supported curriculum review is by students themselves contributing on what they think other institutions are doing more competitively than your own institution. Because much as we share knowledge at the academia level, at the instructors and lecturers level, these guys at this lower level share more information, share more strategies than we do. And the last thing on how, again, be very intentional and facilitate. Do not predate. One of the reasons why students don't open up to their lecturers or your universities is that they believe that once they generate ideas, you're going to take them over. And there was an example that was given here by one of the speakers. I think it was Engineer Anke. A university cannot own 100% of an enterprise that belongs to a student or to a lecturer or to an instructor. So what has to happen is behave the Estonia way. The government of Estonia is known to be one of the best governments facilitating the startup ecosystem. But what does it do? Create the environment, facilitate registration, facilitate formalization, but take only 1% or a maximum 10% as a stake as a university. And that 10% could be, or 1% could be a stake of 10 enterprises. Now, if 38 enterprises in Kenya in 2023 raised 630 billion, it was about 630 million. It was about 7.7 million US dollars per enterprise. That is probably bigger than what we use to run most of our faculties in the institutions for smaller universities. So smaller enterprises and smaller stakes without predating in these enterprises or student startup would give us the impetus to encourage students to generate ideas and open up. And lastly, we've supported many institutions to create offices of career services where we are anchoring employability skills, innovation, and entrepreneurship. And one thing that we run commonly is career fairs. In these career fairs, we have demo days and innovation challenges. So I would encourage you or challenge you there. that when you leave here and you go back to your institutions, can you run a challenge for entrepreneurship or run a challenge for innovations among your students and see the ideas that come up? And give responsibilities or assign responsibilities to the most passionate individuals, whether they're in the faculty or they are non-teaching academic, staff, because what is going to generate and support entrepreneurship, innovation, and incubation in our institution is passion than what we know on the academic side. And that is the reality, that people probably without the degrees or people without the second or third degrees are more practical in their approach to facilitating entrepreneurship, innovation, and that kind of ecosystem. But the first is, can we also encourage our students to co-create? I left a university with a certificate of my degree. The others could have been certificates of leadership and participation in social courses. Can we encourage and make it a target that when we generate or graduate students, they leave one with a certificate on their particular course and degree, but they also leave with a business registration certificate? What would that do? If I get out of the ecosystem and I'm looking for opportunities to supply or even collaborate with government, we have affirmative action tenders or business opportunities in every of these countries. But what you need is a simple business registration or incorporation certificate. When we graduate and get out of these institutions, we don't have the $100 that it costs to register and incorporate a business. But this could be part of my projects from year 1 to year 2, that at year 2 or year 3, I have a registered business as an individual or as a group of 5 students that are collaborating in also taking care of the fact that we only have 3 pathways now. The pathway number 1 is employability skill. The pathway number 2 is innovation. The third pathway is entrepreneurship. And all these are responding to the question on jobs, jobs, jobs. The highest propensity is with entrepreneurship and innovation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think all is said, so I'm trying to find if I can add something. But I want to pick from the point that the previous speaker mentioned around being intentional in integrating entrepreneurship in our education. I think one of the key aspects on the output of our graduates is our education philosophy as institutions. So what is our education philosophy as institutions? I think here, if we want to integrate entrepreneurship as a part and parcel of our curriculum, we need to find a way of adopting the entrepreneurial education as our education philosophy, to be able to provide those skills, entrepreneurial skill set that he mentioned. He mentioned the critical thinking, but there is the design thinking, there is the agility, there is adaptability, and these other skills, leadership and the communication. So by adopting our entrepreneurial education philosophy, we should be able to deliver to that. But that doesn't only come from the curriculum. I think the biggest part is on how do we deliver the curriculum, because we need to get the right approaches in the curriculum delivery. Yesterday, we were talking about problem-based learning, talking about challenge-based learning, but the key aspect here is how do we frame those problems, how do we frame those challenges, and how do we give those case studies that can instill that entrepreneurship spirit. So I think here we need to rethink about our mode of teaching. And another aspect is to engage the entrepreneurs in our teaching, not inviting them for the public talks, but inviting them in our teaching so that they can give seminars or sessions to the student. Then the student can know the reality in the world of business and be able to spot the business opportunities in their particular field, so that way they can even be able to apply some of the entrepreneurial skills that they would acquire. Another aspect is collaboration among the lecturers and the teachers. Someone talked about multidisciplinarity, but for me, I want to probably introduce here the aspect of integrated programs that provide integrated challenges, where students from more than 1 or 2 programs can collaborate in a specific challenge, then from there they can be able to use all the different skills to address the challenge, and the challenge should be addressing the real world problem. So with those approach, I think the student will be able to get some of the entrepreneurial skills that they need. But of course, they need also to be exposed to different avenues that will provide them with the right platform to acquire some of the skills. And that leads me to how do we spot the talents? I think by exposing them, you will see those who are really interested, who are eager to join the entrepreneurship journey, but also organizing some intentional activities to be able to give them the spot to showcase what they are capable of doing, but also expressing their interest. Some of the colleagues mentioned having innovation challenge, having career fairs, but also having innovation boot camps, but also allow them to go out to some other of the platforms from either the private sector, but also these other partners that we are collaborating with, and see how even their idea can be potential to the other partners. And another aspect is also having a very programmed mentorship program, so that the mentors will be able to know some of the talents around and be able to set the pathways for grooming them. Thank you.
Thank you. Integrating entrepreneurship into academic programs. I would like to take the UNESCO approach of dealing with these things. UNESCO says it is not nice to talk about integration of certain forms of knowing into something. And here I want us to start to think about how do we weave entrepreneurship into our academic programs. Weaving, it means that it's something that becomes part and parcel of our academic programs. That's a mindset shift. I think in the morning people spoke about mindset change. And in this case, if you are to weave entrepreneurship into academic programs, it starts with that mindset change with academic leadership. And it cascades down to the professors and the lecturers, including the technicians and support staff. If that is achieved, it means that it becomes easy to weave or integrate entrepreneurship into our academic programs. I'm a conservation biologist by training, but if you talk to me today, I only talk about the business of conservation because that's the philosophy and the theory of change that we run with as the School of Wildlife Conservation at ALU, because ALU is all about training ethical, innovative entrepreneurial leaders. And for that, whether you are a physicist or you are a data scientist or you are an engineer, you should have that mindset change. What mindset do we want our faculty to have? So it starts with us. And I see we want to talk about the program and the students, but that change starts with us. So that's number one. And that will lead to curriculum innovation. Curriculum innovation means that we go out of the box. He refused to say conventional. So going out of the box means that we are running away from what we know as the norm. And in this case, I'll give the example of Africa Leadership University. It believes that in missions and not majors, meaning that when a student enters the university in day one, a student has to identify and to develop a mission supported by mission curators, learning coaches, in order for them to be able to identify that problem that they want to solve as an individual from wherever they come from. In their countries, their villages, a student should have a mission. And that mission should have an element of entrepreneurship in it, because we know that the challenges that we have in Africa, be it healthcare, be it education, be it social services, everything that we need, everything that we can talk about has a bit of entrepreneurship in it. All of us are entrepreneurs in one way or the other. We have sold sweets or bread in one way or the other. So we are entrepreneurs. In this case, we can and we should embed entrepreneur ideas in all our courses, whether it is biology or it is physics. We should embed those ideologies in it. But we believe also of experiential learning. So how can students be able to tap into the ideologies of entrepreneurship? We understand that normally students learn only 10% of the things that they are able to use in real life from the classroom. And the 20% they learn from their peers. And the 70% they learn from doing. And so if we introduce Entrepreneurship 101 in year one, then they go and do physics, they go and do chemistry, they go and do biology, how are they going to learn from their peers and how are they going to possibly learn by doing? And so many conventional programs that introduce a 101 will end up not actually being able to meet the goal that we are setting ourselves for, to weave or to integrate entrepreneurship into our programs. Why? Because it's only one course. At ALU, we have the Center of Entrepreneurship that weaves down and goes there, and we have an entrepreneurship lab. Every student goes through E-Lab. Whether you are going to be doing software engineering, we are going to be doing international and business trade, we are going to be doing Bachelor of Entrepreneurship leadership, entrepreneurial leadership, you have to go through the E-Lab, where you have to learn by doing, through teams, do projects, and be able to come up with an idea to solve a real life problems. So as a student comes in, a student wants to solve a problem. So we identify what we refer to as global challenges and global opportunities that a student identifies with. But within that challenge and the opportunity, a student has to have an entrepreneurial mindset in addressing and dealing with that problem. And so that's one aspect of dealing with. But at a global level, I want to talk about policy frameworks. This is not possible if our policies are not in sync with what the government wants. So if the government pushes a policy that we need to push entrepreneurship, we need to push innovation in our institutions, our accreditation bodies are going to make sure that they bring us up to task. You cannot accredit a program that lacks aspects of innovation and entrepreneurship because you are actually not producing graduates that are fit for purpose. So it is very important to do that. How do we identify? How do we identify entrepreneurial students? We learning by doing, because students will demonstrate that they are able by the outputs and the product that they produce when they go through the E-Lab, right? They are given a task, they are given a challenge, or they identify a challenge, and students are able to do that. We have so many programs that we could actually have discussed and talked about, but because of time, I won't be able to do that. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Colleagues, we don't have too much time. Our lunch is cold already. So we need to move and end this session. And I would like to thank our panelists for all their committed and vibrant presentations. I'd just like to ask you, as you move out, to think about Bloom's taxonomy, right? And ask, where does an entrepreneur sit in your Bloom's taxonomy? I won't answer this question here. Right? Where do you locate them? And how do we get there? So thank you very much. Let's close the session. Thank you, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Sorry for rushing in. Enough time. Yeah.
Can we give a round of applause to our session chair And also to all our presenters, please. You're not clapping for the presenters, eh? Okay, just quick announcements. I know you're all hungry, but I think it's worth it. It's good to eat food when you're hungry, then when to eat when you're full. So our lunch will be served in the usual place of yesterday, and there will be coupons that will be given to you. The second bit is that we will be back here after 30 minutes. So please let's try to maintain time so that we can be able to give opportunity for those who will be presenting. The presenters, please.